What's up, everyone? It is September 25th, 2025 here. The first ever live stream, live chat here on the Bohn and Farah YouTube channel, joined by my great colleague from MMA Junkie, who just wrapped up one of her great shifts. Very productive as always, Farah. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good. Excited to try out something new here. No one I'd rather speak with. A lot going on. Got UFC Perth this weekend. Some news out there. Figured we'd just touch on it all and answer some questions here. I already see a couple, or at least one there in the chat. So yeah, we're off to a good start. Everything good on your side of the world? Where are you right now? Are you in Egypt?
Yeah, I just flew back to Egypt on Saturday, so settled back home.
Yeah, and you were in Morocco before, or where were you?
I was in Morocco, Dubai before that, Morocco, and then now back.
Yeah, very busy. And then what? You're I'm sure you're heading back to Dubai, Abu Dhabi in the next couple weeks here.
Yep. That's the plan. Try to go early, try to get some work done, and then fight week.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so a lot of things we can hit on here. I guess let's just start a little bit with UFC Perth, since that is the nearest thing to us. Not the most loaded card. I think a headline, came out from local news there in Australia, last night. I think showing ticket sales maybe aren't the best. Not shocked if you kind of looked at this fight card. I mean, the last two events they got there were pay-per-views with like Alexander Volkanovski and some of the bigger names. So I'm not sure what the difference in the ticket prices is, but yeah, a little bit rough. Either way, I think it's a great main event between Carlos Ulberg here and Dominic Reyes. Huge fight, kicks off the stretch of light heavyweight matchups. I think the division really going to take shape over these next 9 days here. But I don't know, this fight, did you think this was the right move to make here in terms of where both these guys are? I'm sure Carlos Ulberg with an 8-fight winning streak would have loved to be fighting up here, but not many people were available, being ranked number 3. So with Dominic Reyes' streak, I don't know, did you like this matchup?
Yeah, I did. I mean, usually sometimes I'm not a big fan of eliminating like a fresh face for the champion, and considering that both are fresh faces for both Ankalaev and Pereira, if I don't have that wrong. Whereas on the other side of the bracket with Khalil Roundtree and Yuri Prohaska, it's a bit of a different story. So maybe in that regard, but outside of that, I understand that those other names have more experience, and sometimes when there's a rising contender, there has to be a bit of a test. And if you look at Carlos Ulberg's resume, with the win over Reyes, then you can make an argument before that. Yeah, the Blachowicz fight was is a big name, but then some people think it's controversial. They'll look at his other names and whatnot. So yeah, when looking at it like that, I don't hate the matchup. I think stylistically it's a lot of fun, and I think a lot of factors are going to play in terms of who ends up. I mean, I don't want to jinx it, and I'd feel very, very sorry for the crowd if this fight somehow doesn't end up being entertaining, considering the rest of the fight card. But I think the way whoever wins is going to win in pretty spectacular fashion, in my opinion. I think, at least I hope so. They could make a big case with a win, of course.
Yeah. Do you believe in this Dominic Reyes career resurgence, or is it just being, like a nice stretch of wins against guys in the lower part of the top 15 here? And I don't know, is this going to be maybe where the line is drawn in terms of like, yeah, he rebuilt himself, he got a nice streak, but is he actually that guy who can make it back to the title?
I mean, I picked him because I just feel I probably underestimated him in that 3-fight win streak. I think might have picked. I'm not sure about the last one, but I think I picked against him quite a bit recently. Obviously, the chin is a big question mark, considering the amount of damage he had taken and what he's gone through, like kind of the emotional roller coaster. But he's very good. He's very good, and I think he's got a complete skill set. He can grapple as well. I would like to see if he's going to use that against Carlos Ulberg, or is he just going to be content to stand and trade? I do think he has the power advantage over Carlos Ulberg, but let me put it this way. Am I going to be entirely shocked if Carlos Ulberg puts him out? No, just because of the chin questions. He's looked a lot better and a lot more confident. I think confidence is the big factor here, that he's obviously looks like a different fighter, a fighter that believes that he can make another title run. So I did pick him just because of the experience. I think he's more well-rounded, and I think he hits harder. And I think, not quite sure if he's going to lean into his wrestling at all. Maybe the clinch will be interesting, but I think he's going to be quite comfortable standing on the feet. Obviously, Ulberg can clip him, but I don't know. I think it's 50-50 for me, but I think I believe in the resurgence is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, all things being equal, it seems like he's maybe got a little more of the assets in his toolbox here. But yeah, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube when it comes to the knockouts and the chin and everything. So like that's concerning. And I had Rashad Evans on the podcast this week. Everyone should check that out if you haven't already. Posted that last night. But basically, he was saying like whoever gets there first is probably going to be the winner at this point. So like I don't expect this to go 5 rounds like just
Yeah.
battering each other and just like some crazy war. I feel like if the first heavy shot that lands is probably going to be it. So yeah, a big time fight. And I don't know, like are you looking at this almost like a 4-man race for the next title shot? Like one of those situations, we're not going to put the title eliminator tag on Reyes or Alberg or Blachowicz or Roundtree, but whoever has the best performance, whoever shines the brightest will probably be at the front of the queue.
Yeah, I believe so. And but the issue is here, it's like obviously if Alex Pereira wins and then Yuri Prohaska wins, they're not going to go down that route again. But then are we thinking trilogy with Ankalaev? Pereira seems to think that the UFC are not going to be interested in putting Ankalaev in the title picture again. But I guess a lot of factors. I think it really, and look, we've learned over the years that UFC, it kind of depends on the champion, when he's ready to go, the type of event they want him to headline, and who's willing to be the right dance partner at the right time. I think so. Sometimes I sit and matchmake in my head and nothing pans out just because it's like, all right, this champion wants to fight in October. Who's ready to go in October? They desperately need a headliner because sometimes we've seen cards that aren't that good. I'm a little disappointed with the Abu Dhabi card. I'm not going to lie. Like we've been so spoiled with the past Abu Dhabi pay-per-views that I'm a little disappointed with that one. But we had a lot of people. I'm sure they have like a million ideas in their head, and then now we have the Paramount deal, so maybe they're trying to push other things. Then you know what I mean. So a lot of things play out, but I do think, yeah, I mean, because Roundtree and Prohaska's a wild man. Like his fights are always like it's kind of kill or be killed with him as well. But then if Alex Pereira wins, he's already beat both of those guys, so you'd kind of look at the other side of the bracket, right?
Yeah, I tend to agree with all that. It's a good time for the light heavyweight division. So if you kind of want more in-depth breakdowns on those, definitely watch the podcast with Rashad. He had a lot of great technical analysis about all three of these light heavyweight fights. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting turn to see where this goes. But I guess speaking of interesting turns, let's turn our attention to the rest of this card. I know not a ton of meat on the bone. Let's see this comment here from Banana Breakdown. A few of my friends in Perth were saying prices aren't justifiable for a fight night with only very few notable names, and I can't disagree with it, to be honest. More expensive than UFC 284. Like that's kind of crazy to have it pricier than a pay-per-view, but this is the TKO way in 2025, so I don't think that's changing. I mean, this is the only way you can show your resistance as a fan, right? By showing your dollars or not showing your dollars, and they slash the prices, things like that happen. But in terms of the rest of this card, as I said, like nothing too stellar out there. If I ask for your like most intriguing non-main event storyline, is there anything you can muster up? I have one.
I mean, I don't know if this is what you're going to say because you can help me out with the stats because there's always stats surrounding Neil Magny and records and whatnot. So Jake Matthews and Neil Magny is probably the only thing. I mean, stylistically, Tom Nolan and Charlie Campbell is fun, but I don't think stakes and stipulations, there's anything to it. And I think that's why it's the main card opener. But I know some city kickboxing guys in there and whatnot, but I would say at least storyline wise, Matthews and Magny, that probably should have been the co-main event. I don't know why it's not, but.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just reading some data I got from the UFC stats people on this card. Just 6 of the 14 fights now on this card feature fighters with winning records in the UFC. So that's a bit of a tough thing there. And then 6 debuts as well. But I agree. It's got to be the Neil Magny thing. I mean, he's at the point in his career where it's always like on the cusp of history. He can be the second person to reach 24 UFC wins. He's currently in like a 5-way tie at 23 wins with Oliveira and Poirier and a couple others, Arlovsky, I think. So yeah, that would be a nice feather in the cap. And he's a pretty big dog here. I mean, Jake Matthews has had quite the up and down UFC run himself. I don't know. This is a classic Neil Magny fight. I know Matthews has been here forever, but he's still the younger guy. Seems like he's got, the more long-term future, but I don't know, like, do you see this as a test he can get through, or are we going to get the classic Neil Magny type of fight?
I think I picked Jake Matthews here, and Matthews has always been a guy who's had a lot of potential. He's just so quiet when it comes to the media and stuff like that, so it's kind of hard to gauge. Like, we tend to listen to a lot of interviews and kind of analyze where a fighter's mind's at. Like, Jake Matthews is not really in the limelight. He's never really been interested to be in the limelight. He just quietly gets about, and he's had some really good performances, and then he's had some disappointing ones. And then, yeah, it's like he's still young. He's just one of those guys where every time you're like surprised at how young he is, because obviously he was super young when he came into the UFC through The Ultimate Fighter. I remember when his first fight was Olivier Aubin-Mercier, actually, and he ended up losing his first bout on The Ultimate Fighter. So sometimes it's like the way a fighter's career pans out is maybe not even the way they would have imagined it, but he's still here, and he's still, always has potential to make a run in the welterweight division. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with him. It's hard to put, but again, Magny is one of those guys I always pick against. So
I know, I'd love to go back and see my win-loss record on the Neil Magny ones. Like, I usually do pick him in spots like this. I did not for this one. I don't know. Like, I think what Matthews did against Chidi and Jaquani in the last fight was pretty impressive. So maybe he has finally turned that corner. We'll see, and can kind of maximize that potential. But yeah, that's the only one that really stands out to me on the card in terms of having like stakes beyond just the win or the loss. But obviously that is a welterweight fight, and here's the first question that got dropped into the chat by Jamie Radisson. Is there a good argument the welterweight division is the most stacked right now? It just happened so suddenly that we've had so many elite contenders there. Yes, I think if it's not the most, it's right up there. Top 2 or 3 best divisions. This has been in the works for like years and years, right? Like Usman and Colby Covington and Masvidal and everything. We're just running that top 5 for such a long time there. We finally got the turnover. Usman's the only one still kicking it as a top 5 fighter.
Yeah, I think the important thing is here is because those rising guys are pretty young, and I think that's what makes it exciting. Is like sometimes the guys who are lower in the rankings are up there in age a little bit, kind of like the Beneil Dariush's or whatnot, like those guys who haven't broken into, like, so close to breaking into title contention but haven't. But in this case, it's like Ian Machado Gary and Shafkat and Sean Brady. You got a lot of young blood that's battling for kind of the title contention. So it's an exciting time, and it just, I don't know, it seems like they're all calling each other out, all saying they're down to fight each other, and we're not seeing any fights getting booked. So I don't know what the real story is. I know Sean Brady's been itching to compete. Ian Machado Gary's had a reputation for fighting anyone. Obviously, his last 2, I think, were on short notice. Bilal's down to fight. All of them are kind of down to fight, but then I don't know where Shafkat is. But I don't know. It's weird that we haven't seen any fights booked yet. But again, could be something to do with the Paramount deal like we were talking about. So who knows?
Yeah, I wonder if we're 7 weeks away from UFC 322 now. Like, I wonder if they were to offer you a fight for, December, January, like, do you just wait at this point and kind of see what happens? Because if Islam beats Jack Della Maddalena, like, I really don't know what the direction is from there. Does he vacate and go back to lightweight? Does the Ilya moving up to welterweight thing happen? Like, is that just completely brushed aside? Is he going to fight an actual ranked welterweight contender like a Sean Brady or a Shavkat or whoever, which are all extremely fascinating fights? It just complicates things a lot. Whereas if Jack Della Maddalena wins, I think it's obviously going to be a little more straightforward, just like kind of the next man up, whatever fight they deem most appropriate. So I don't know. Do you see it a different way, or do you think it basically what I just said there?
Yeah, pretty much. I think maybe Kamaru Usman could be intriguing to Islam Makhachev because I know same management, but it's not like they're like training partners or anything like that. I think Kamaru's under the belief that he has the biggest name in the division. He snapped the winning streak of Joaquin Buckley. He's sitting pretty comfortable, and I think that's why he's kind of not, I don't want to say he's not accepting fights, but maybe not verbally, at least on podcasts and stuff like that, being like, yeah, I'll fight Bilal or I'll fight this guy. I think he's under the belief that he could walk into a title fight, which isn't the craziest idea in the world. I'm not saying he should, but I'm just saying based off of he's banking on the name value thing, and he's not entirely wrong when you look at, because the guys we've named are fantastic fighters, the rising contenders, but they're not the perennial contenders like that had the names like the Colby Covingtons and the Jorge Masvidal. And he's the only one that is off of a win, and a good one, in Joaquin Buckley. So could be interesting. That maybe I wouldn't be surprised if, and the UFC likes him. I know he's got a good relationship with the UFC and Dana. So who knows? I think he's the only one I could think maybe Islam, if Islam wins, that he could fight Kamaru, because that'll be a good name to have on his resume, right? Because Kamaru's got an amazing one.
Yeah, I could see that. That's like the legacy name too. And yeah,
Yeah.
Ali would be pushing for his guy there in the matchup between them. So yeah, I could see that. We'll see where it goes. I'm really interested. Islam's looking very, very good. I know when I did that interview with him like a few months ago, right after he vacated, he said he was struggling to put on the weight to get up to welterweight, but I think he's turned the corner there. So really, really stoked for that fight, which we'll talk much more about in the future. Here's one from Lazy Bed, kind of spinning it back to UFC Perth. What do you know about Louie Sutherland, Farah? Do you know too much about this guy making his debut? We're testing your knowledge here. No,
No, I don't
you don't
know
know
too
too much
much.
either.
Yeah, but what's interesting to me in general, and obviously maybe not the case, because when I look at these cards that have a lot of debutants or a lot of local talent, like the one location or one event that I think really know their stuff and really get behind their guys are the French fans. And
Hmm.
I've always noticed that. Like, even I remember how amazed I was at the Q&A. So this was like Paris 2023, and there was a Q&A with Nasruddin Imavov, and I was the only English media asking questions afterwards. It was all French, and these fans are very, very educated. Like, they were asking about a lot of prospects, guys that aren't even in the UFC, asking Imavov, and there are beefs involved and stuff. So I can imagine a UFC Paris event selling out with a lot of debutants and stuff, but obviously not the case in general with this Perth card. So there are a lot of new guys, and it's not my area of expertise when it comes to the Australian fight scene. But yeah, I mean, obviously from the ticket sales and stuff like that, it's not. Yeah, it's not looking good.
It's
But
not
Louis
moving.
Sutherland is obviously not. He's fighting the Australian fighter or the hometown guy. But no, I don't know too much about him.
It's hard to keep track of. Far there's 6 debuts on this card. That'll bring
Yeah.
the total of UFC debuts in 2025 to 71 total after this card has been made, and they lots more to come. Considering what they've signed, 30 plus people already from the season of Dana White's Contender Series. So two losing fighters already. So
You know
many more
what?
debuts.
It just rang a bell to me now, but this is probably not. It is not me complimenting him. He did fight Slim Trabilsi, who's a Tunisian French fighter. Okay, now I knew. I thought I knew his name.
There
That's
we
all the
go.
way
We
I want
got
to
you,
remember
lazy
his
bed.
name. Yeah, that's all the way I want to remember his name. But I just remembered him right now because Slim had that weird, controversial thing where he was going to be in the UFC and then he wasn't in the UFC and he ended up in Bellator / PFL, a heavyweight out of France, Tunisian French. But yes, I remember him losing to him. That's what I remember. But he's on the main card. Good for him. He's on
Yeah.
Saturday's main card.
There you go. I think the biggest piece of news we've got this week in terms of like something firm that actually happened, not just people saying stuff, was the new UFC Rio main event with Mateusz
Yeah.
Gamrot stepping in against Charles Oliveira. It was a kind of a multi-day search there. We didn't know who it was going to be. I know like Manuel Torres was in the running, Mauricio Rufy was in the running. These are all things Oliveira said in that interview, but they weren't very appealing to him. I don't know. I don't know what the resistance was against Gamrot. Like, I understand he's got his style that's kind of, is what it is, but Charles Oliveira has the most submission wins in UFC history, and he's fought like all the elite grapplers in this division. Sometimes it's been losses, sure, but like, I don't know. This doesn't feel like one where you could be like, oh, it's too big of a style change. Like, you have almost 40 UFC fights and you fought grapplers time and time again. So I don't know. Were you happy that ultimately this was the fight that came together, or would you have tried to go in a different direction?
I don't hate it for Oliveira. He's coming off of a brutal knockout. A lot of people think
Exactly.
it's too quick of a turnaround. Gamrot isn't exactly a power puncher. Yes, we've seen Oliveira have a tendency of getting taken down, but Oliveira kind of welcomes that. I don't really believe that this is necessary. Oliveira gets taken down so easy, as much as it is he's so comfortable with his jiu-jitsu that sometimes he feels he can lure people into his own world. So it'll make for an interesting scrap there. I don't know if it's the best idea being on your back against Mateusz Gamrot, because he's kind of relentless. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Merab in the sense that he's always actively looking for those takedowns one after the other. Good gas tank and whatnot. But is this still a 5-round fight?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my
Okay.
understanding.
Yeah, so, but I think because of the circumstances, because Oliveira is coming off of a pretty bad knockout and a quick turnaround, I don't think Gamrot's the worst option in the world. I mean, Fiziev like hits like a truck, he kicks like a mule. Like, I don't know if that's the kind of matchup that you would have wanted quick turnaround off of that knockout. And I know Oliveira has been criticized in the past for his durability, and he's shown us an ability of getting knocked down and coming back up and stuff. But that knockout was bad. So I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to fight a grappler.
Yeah, if he gets rocked on the feet or KO'd by Mateusz Gamrot, then there's going to be some serious conversations to be had about Oliveira. It's one thing if it was Fiziev off the turnaround, if it ends up being this fight, which is obviously not Gamrot's track record, even though I think he did hurt Dan Hooker, didn't he? So who knows? It's possible.
But this reminds me of when Moicano dropped Dariush, and I'm like, oh dear.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get dropped. No offense to Money Moicano, but that's not what we pictured, right? So I'm like that. Yeah. And then he obviously managed to turn around and win. So maybe we could see something a little bit like that.
Yeah, well, speaking of UFC Rio, goes off this question from Banana Breakdown. Is Perth still the record for most amount of fights? I don't think so. It's now, I think, down to 14, but UFC Rio on our back end has 17 fights scheduled. So that would be the record if that comes through. But I don't know. The way this always goes, I feel like you book 17 and you hope to have 14 by the time fight night rolls around. That's kind of the strategy at this point, because just crazy things happen. Not as bad as the COVID era, but yeah, that's what it be now. So, I guess the one thing we had on the headline here of this live stream was the little back and forth that we've seen this week between Alex Pereira and Magomed Ankalaev going into UFC 320. Whereas I loaded in the quote here, not too on top of my game right now. Where are you? Here we go. This was what Alex Pereira said. It was kind of a longer answer in his video blog. Leaving the UFC Apex, I think it was Tuesday, he claimed UFC staff hid Magomed Ankalaev in a room from him and went on this long-winded rant here, called him a chump, called him a shitty champion, said he's a coward, all this kind of stuff. Uncharacteristic of Alex Pereira there. I will say before I read the response from Magomed Ankalaev, this isn't uncommon. Like, the UFC knows what they're doing logistically. Like, they try to keep people away from each other on fight week. We saw it, what was it, with Merab and Sean O'Malley like a few months ago before their fight, where Merab said they like kicked him out of the PI or wouldn't let him in or something. I can't remember exactly what happened. So like, I don't think Magomed Ankalaev was hiding, and he doesn't seem like the type who's going to be like, no, like pushing people away to get to Pereira. So I don't really know what it's making of that. This was his, no, that's a different one. That's the Conor McGregor one. This was his response. This clown who I'm fighting said I'm hiding from him. I'm giving him a rematch, and he should be very grateful. I whipped him for 5 rounds, and I did everything I wanted to during the fight. And I don't know if that's fully true. Let's focus on fighting and not trash talking. I don't know. Like, I feel like this fight, scratch that last line. No, let's do a little bit of trash talking because we need to make this exciting leading into fight week. But I don't know. Like, I think the Alex Pereira element of this is more interesting just because this isn't really characteristic of him to be this like fired up. I know he kind of gave Jamal Hill some shit after like the necklace thing at the UFC 300 press conference, but this seems like a much more intense version of himself, and I don't know, like more animated. What did you make of this first outburst from Alex on his side?
Yeah, and there was also that tweet that he said it wasn't me, that it was me, like kind of lashing out at the UFC and whatnot. It's an interesting spot because obviously he was all everybody was talking about. He was on, defended his title a couple of times, spectacular performances, and then he kind of shied away from the limelight a little bit, and a lot of people are like, where is Alex Pereira gone and whatnot, and then he was doing a ton of traveling and stuff. So I guess he hasn't been the talking point that he was when he was champion. And who knows, that could be getting to him a little bit, an unfamiliar situation, because obviously he was very fast-tracked. He had that storyline coming into the UFC being a Glory kickboxing champion, and then, his rivalry with Israel Adesanya and stuff. And now it just seems like, I don't know if this is his attempt in thinking that Ankalaev, I mean, he made that comment of thinking that if he beats Ankalaev, UFC wouldn't want to go trilogy. Maybe he just doesn't see him as, because now I guess technically he's the B-side because he's not the champion, but this is his way of trying to amp up the fight and make people excited because maybe he thinks people aren't. I don't know. But either way, there are storylines in the sense that this is a rematch and that Ankalaev won the fight on the feet and that Pereira managed to stuff all 12 takedowns. There are interesting elements going into the rematch. Like, where is Pereira's confidence at? Is he going to let his hands go more? Is Ankalaev going to try to wrestle again? So I think, and the card's nice. 320 is a good card as well. So I don't know. This could be just Alex Pereira trying to embrace the fact that Ankalaev is trying to trash talk a little bit, or maybe it's bothering him that Ankalaev's usually been very polite and quiet, and now all of a sudden he's trash talking. I don't know.
Yeah, that's Anshul Jubilee's Jastish. I miss when you just said Chama. No, I've seen a lot of people saying that to you in like reaction to this, like, ooh, this is a little off-putting. And yeah, I mean, you would imagine if he goes in there and he gets sparked or something, and it's a very bad night for Alex Pereira, people might point to this and say, was he too heated, too emotional, too distracted? I don't know, all these things. But if he goes out there, it'll be what Rashad Evans said, on the podcast yesterday, that like he needs this fire. It's the kick in the butt. It's a great sign, all that. So I don't know. It'll be an interpretation completely based off what happens there in the fight. But it's a great matchup. I mean, I like that. I hope they continue this energy like at the press conference. I prefer this over Magomed Ankalaev sitting on his phone playing games if the two options are between it like he did last time. So I don't know. Do you think though, when they're sitting up there on next Thursday, a week from today, like will we get some more of this, or is it all going to die out by then?
No, I think we will. I think anytime when it's uncharacteristic, whether from either side, because I think in the beginning, before Ankalaev started to ramp up, because remember, we didn't even know his Ankalaev's Twitter account real or not. Remember, we were going through, and it's like hard to search for his Twitter account. Like, I have to actually go Ankalaev M at, and then go straight to his account. Like, I don't even know how to reach his Twitter account sometimes. But I think he's kind of noticed, like, I'm sure management has spoken to Ankalaev and told him, because look, he had to go on a crazy winning streak, right? To get to his title shot. So he understands that he has to do other things to be appealing. And that's probably why he accepted this Pereira rematch or was down for it, because there are other guys. There are a lot of guys he hasn't fought yet, right? But for him, it's like Pereira's a big name. Like, why wouldn't I want to fight him again? He feels like he beat him very comfortably, as we just saw in the tweet. So for him, it's like, why would I not want to make more money, be a main event, right? So I think this is the way he's looking at it. Let's ramp up the trash talk. Let's try to show people that I'm not, boring, like, because that was a moniker that was put on him. Like, he's a really good fighter, and he was knocking guys out on in his winning streak, but he got the moniker. The Rakic win wasn't the most spectacular, like, win in the sense of, like, you as a fan watching it. So I think there was criticism towards that, but at the end of the day, like, no one had an answer for Alex Pereira, and he did it pretty comfortably. So I don't know. I don't hate it. And I think they're going to ramp it up more in the press conference. I just hope the translator can keep up. I think, yeah. I think it's up to the translators to do it now.
Yeah, Fabiano and Sergey are going to have their hands full with that one. In terms of the fight, though, and I know still over a week out, so lots of time to adjust your opinion based on things that are said and that you see, but what do you think Ankalaev's approach is going to be, right? Like he said, this time I'm going to knock you out, like all those type of things, but he's the one with everything to lose now. He's the champion. We know if he loses, they're not going to be keen to book the trilogy right away. And who knows where his whole thing goes. Maybe he gets traded to PFL, as Dean Thomas suggested. We'll circle back to that in a second, but like, what are you expecting his approach, and what would the advice be? Like, do you go in there and try to make it as spectacular as possible, roll the dice standing with Alex Pereira, or is it just like, get this win, get your 2-0 record against Alex Pereira, get the hell out of there with your belt, and then move on to something else?
Yeah, same approach in my opinion. Like, you don't want to play games with Alex Pereira. And I know he's a very good striker and he's comfortable on the feet against anyone, because, he fought Rakic as a striker and he stood with, like, he'll stand with anybody. He'll stand with Jan Blachowicz. He'll stand with all those guys that are power punchers. But Alex Pereira obviously has that touch, and he's not a guy that overextends or lunges to put your lights out, right? Could be like a short left hook and it's over. So, with Alex Pereira, you don't want to play games. And look, he attempted 12 takedowns. He was clinching. Like, I think that should still be part of his game plan, because you want to make Alex Pereira hesitant. You want to make him think twice before throwing a kick, before throwing anything. So I think his approach should be the same. The pressuring, mixing things up with the takedowns, even if he fails. And that's going to open up his striking. It's like, we see that with a lot of people who bring a dangerous grappling game. They find success on the feet. Like, even if you go all the way back to Khabib and Conor, because the person in front of you is afraid to get taken down. So they're naturally going to be hesitant. And anytime they lunge forward, that's just going to open up the takedown for you easier. So even if Alex Pereira tries to take a much more aggressive approach, that's going to play into Ankalaev's favor in terms of the grappling. So I think same thing, just try to cut him off, get his back against the fence, and mix in a lot of clinch. Might not look pretty, but it's not the time to play games. You said it yourself. You lose, it's going to be a long road back to the title.
Yeah, don't stand at range too much with Alex Pereira, but it'll be interesting to see how he approaches it. I was just watching like something on X, someone put together like a counter striking highlight of Ankalaev, and he's very dangerous when you try to get very aggressive on him. So it'll be curious to see how Pereira approaches it. But yeah, I alluded to it. We don't need to spend too much time on it because I don't think it is going to happen. But this Dean Thomas take, and we love Dean here on the Bonfire. Had him on many times. He'll be back on many more times in the future. Everyone else taking him from us now on all the other shows and getting these takes, but I know he said this like over a year ago, which a little more reasonable then. Sure, like Ankalaev was getting, roadblock to a title shot. Clearly they didn't want it too bad for him, and he said, hey, trade him to PFL for Dakota Tacheva. And I will not lie, this particular trade hasn't been discussed as far as I know, but there was something at least floated out there by one of the sides historically about a trade for Dakota Tacheva with a UFC fighter who currently holds UFC gold. And if you have your eyes scanned out there, he actually made a comment about he would be in the PFL if not for something earlier this week. So you can put the two pieces together, and he's also on this UFC 320 card. Any more hints needed? But yeah, the trade talk is fun, Farah. Sorry for my little rant there, but I don't know. Any reaction to this, or is it just Dean talking and something realistic? I guess if you were either side of this trade, would you accept it?
Now, obviously, it's hard to say that about someone who holds UFC gold. Like, it's very insulting at this point because at the end of the day, you could just get Dakota without a trade. I mean, I know she re-signed with PFL, which I thought was an interesting move. Like, obviously, the two kind of big names or big stars for PFL right now, and Usman Nurmagomedov and Dakota have re-signed recently, if I'm not mistaken, which is interesting decisions because I think it's a little bit risky because there are a lot of tough unknown talent at PFL, especially when you look at the lightweight, featherweight brackets. A lot of Dagestani fighters, these crazy win streaks and crazy records, not with the biggest names in the world, and they just come out there and just kill everybody's hopes. Like, you don't want to be stuck with PFL having to fight those type of matchups because it's risky. The more she fights, the less buzz there will be around it because she's not going to be knocking out everybody forever, right? So I would have liked to see her in the UFC, but trading her for a current active champion is a little bit of he doubled and he tripled down on his opinion. Now, if Magomed loses his light heavyweight title, I think his comment becomes a slightly tiny bit less outrageous. But I don't know if that's the direction I would go. Like, why Magomed and Ankalaev? There's still a lot of fresh matchups for him. You know what? If he had fought everybody, let's say, won some, lost some, and then he loses to Alex Pereira, and they're like, well, who are you going to put him up against? No, he does so many fights for him. Like, I saw it get crazy. Like, he's a very good fighter that just won the title. This is not a guy who has been in the title picture 10 times and you just can't wait to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of fresh matchups for him, the upper echelon of light heavyweight. Like, let's calm down, Dean.
Yeah, and not even that. He's quite frankly on track for one of the greater UFC careers we've seen in this decade and prior. Like, he is 13 1-1 in the UFC, 12 1-1. I think it's 13. Like, he's on a 14 fight unbeaten streak. If he wins this, he's going to be, I think, the third longest unbeaten streak in UFC history behind John Jones, Anderson Silva, and then this one. So, like, we're talking about an all-time fighter here, and if he can go on a run, it's just a lot to ask to part ways. And I think it would be a worse look on the UFC than it would for PFL to move a fighter away from that who maybe you're not super keen on their style, all that type of stuff. So I don't know. It's pie in the sky things. And I think it goes back to what you said. If the UFC wants Dakota Tacheva bad enough with the steel ends with PFL, they'll find a way. So I'm pretty confident in that. So that does it on that. But Green Bandana likes it. So he'd love to see the trade. Okay, Farah, let's move on. Any questions here? Any rumors of any lightweight matchups before the end of the year in terms of like rank guys? I assume Lazy Bed responded to him. Nazim Sadikov was, I don't know if what the plan is. He was going to fight Gamrot on November 8th. That was the plan for the main event there. Obviously, Gamrot got moved up, so I don't know what they're going to do as in terms of a replacement. I think he said he just wants someone ranked. I don't know who that would be, but everyone is available as far as I could tell. There is no official fights announced with anyone in the rankings. Am I looking here? Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Not a single lightweight fight booked. You hearing anything, Farah? You expect anyone in there before the end of the year?
I wouldn't be. I think it all just depends on who they want to give Ilya. And I've been hearing a lot about Paddy being. It seems like Paddy's training and getting ready for that. Maybe they want to start off the Paramount deal with a bang, and no better matchup to do it than Ilya and Paddy. And I know a lot of people are going to have reservations. Arman Sarukian is under the impression that he will have to fight again, so it's like he's already mentally prepared for that. Justin Gaethje is obviously not going to be happy, but you got Dan Hooker in there as well. What do you do with this trio? Who fights who? I don't know. Gamrot just fought Dan Hooker, so you can't go down that route again. Gamrot's now fighting Oliveira. If Oliveira beats Gamrot, you put Oliveira and Hooker and go Arman and Justin. And I don't know. But I'll just say I wouldn't be entirely surprised if Paddy got the title shot against Ilya as a way for them to kick off this new Paramount deal in a big way. Like, it's such a big fight that we keep talking about this. Okay, there's no more pay-per-view, but the topic of discussion is like, do we have any more stars? Like, are the UFC going to recover? Obviously, that question seems to piss Dana off quite a bit. With the uncertainty surrounding Conor and John Jones. And even if Conor came back on the White House card, it could be one and done. Same thing for John Jones. So it's like, are they going to lose the opportunity to capitalize on such a big fight like Ilya versus Paddy with the fan bases that they bring and obviously the trash talk and all that? I don't know. So I think it would be, because Paddy, you risk it, right? You match him up. He could lose. He could lose to Justin Gaethje. He could lose to Arman Sarukian. He's definitely not a good matchup for anybody. So do you want to risk losing that matchup, especially that Ilya said he wants it? I don't know. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, that feels like the one to do for me as well, especially if it's going to be on CBS. Like, you want to drive subscription. I wonder if they'll put the first card on CBS or if it'll be Paramount Plus only to drive subscriptions. That'll be an interesting move. I could see it being behind the paywall for that one, but we'll see what kind of moves they make. God, I wonder what Max Holloway does, where he fits into this. If Oliveira wins, do you do him and Max for the BMF?
How do I forget him? How do I even forget him? So
he hasn't adapted into your lightweight mind yet.
No, he hasn't. Yeah, well, there you go. There's a BMF title fight in there as well, but where do you even go? Arman, no, he doesn't fit. Arman should be in the title. If they put Arman in the BMF title picture, that's just ridiculous. That means they just really hate him. But like Arman, I think is the one guy that should be getting the title fight in general, so we can just put him in a number one contender bout. Justin Gaethje just fought Max Holloway recently. Who do you go down there? Charles Oliveira beats Gamrot. If he does it spectacularly, that's like a very BMF type of fight. But,
I think that's
why? I'm sure Max Holloway wants to enter the title picture himself. Like, why is he going to be stuck in this BMF stuff, right? So,
yeah, it's just as long as Ilya holds that belt, I feel like he's going to have to kind of do a few more wins. So we'll see what happens there. Some nice words from Pete here. Farah is outstanding. I agree. I very much agree. Farah's been awesome. What about this one, Farah? I had this on my list of things to bring up. I knocked it off just because we only had so much time. But Ronda Rousey, these training videos that put out, she said she's starting to refine her passion for MMA, all this stuff. Still don't know if this is just like a postpartum, get yourself back in top shape type of thing, or if she actually has mind on competing again. She said all those things in her book on her tour about the brain damage and the issues with concussions. And like, by the time I got to the Amanda Nunes fight, like a gust of wind would rock me type of thing, like let alone those punches. So I don't know how a commission could possibly sanction her when all those things are so thoroughly on the record in her own book. Like, that seems like obstacle number one. So can you even get past that part of it when discussing a Ronda Rousey return to MMA scenario?
The thing is, right now, the names that have popped up talking about wanting to come back and stuff has been linked to the White House. She said she doesn't care about the White House. She doesn't want to fight the White House. So I wonder where, like, the timing of it. And then Kayla Harrison teased something big, not Amanda Nunes. She was talking about Amanda Nunes being the beginning of the year, and then teased something really big at the White House. No offense to the bantamweight division and the non-existent featherweight division. What could she possibly be talking about? Even when I'm thinking of people outside of the UFC, the only person we talked about with name value, Dakota Ditcheva, who's obviously not going to fight Kayla Harrison because of the size difference and not her weight class. So what on earth is Kayla Harrison talking about? Like, unless she's going to fight Marab, like, what is she talking about?
I don't know. Like, my thought is maybe if they do her and Amanda, like Amanda's window officially ends early January. So that could maybe free her and Kayla up for that first Paramount card too, or something in that range. And then maybe you do a rematch at the White House. Like that seemed, and that's what I would want anyways. I mean, Kayla, she would love to try to get the belt back at the White House. Amanda loses. I've been off for all these years. I wasn't my best self, blah, blah, blah. She has a ton of built-in excuses for that potentially. So I don't know. I mean, what more interesting is there? I'm sure, the winner of what Norma Dumont and who's she fighting? Raquel or something. So I don't know. Like, no, that doesn't quite do it for me.
Yeah, I think Raquel's out, no?
No, is it someone else? I can't keep track of all these fights. It was,
but yeah,
I'm looking at it.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't know what Kayla could be talking about, and I know she's probably a shoo-in for the White House card if she was there herself with Dana. But she seemed to be teasing something really big, and I just can't even imagine. I can't even fantasy matchmake unless it's a trilogy with Amanda Nunes win or lose against Nunes. Because we've seen people lose and get an immediate, like Cody Garbrandt and TJ Dillashaw. Cody got another shot at TJ after losing his belt. Granted, he had just won the belt. He wasn't even a multiple time defending champion, but they were trying to kind of build on the rivalry and milk it as much as they got. Cyborg, yeah.
Well, this one, Easy Ray videos. That would be interesting. I mean, Cyborg obviously just got booked for December 13th in the PFL fight, and I think she has 2 left on her contract. So I don't know if the timing would work out, given how long of gaps there's been between her PFL fights. Like, it's hard to imagine her fighting December, fighting March, and then being, ready, free agent for June or something. I'm sure they also have exclusive negotiation windows and all those things. So it's just hard to imagine her being completely free. But frick, that would be awesome if they could.
That's the one, and I didn't even think of that because it just seems like we've been talking about his Cyborg coming back to UFC like a million times, and it just doesn't seem like there's any movement on it or interest from any side. Although I feel like Cyborg would be down. Cyborg is like, she kind of wants her respect, and I understand that. So I feel like if the UFC come and give her that respect, she would be down for it. But I just don't feel like the UFC seem to be too down for it. But if she's teasing it, that means that she's heard something about them potentially like working something out. So I don't know. But yes, obviously that would be very, very big. And Cyborg's won every belt on the planet. And that's an intriguing matchup. And I don't know if you want to pull up his next point. Rousey versus Pena seems winnable for Rousey. Yeah. I mean, that's because that's what I was thinking. Like, if Rousey comes back, it's got to be a name that has value. Like, you can't just throw her in with anybody because that's not what it's about for her, right? Like, if she decides to come back, it's obviously going to be a massive storyline, and you need to give her a dance partner. And Juliana Penny is a great dance partner in every facet with the talking, and she comes to fight. Say what you want about her, but she comes to fight. So
yeah, and they have the history from the Ultimate Fighter too. She was on the opposing team, coached by Tate. So yeah, that'd be fun. Okay, about 10 more minutes here because I know you got to head out somewhere soon here, Farah. Yesterday, PFL's John Martin put out, after talking to our colleague Nolan King at MMA Junkie, you should go watch that interview because it gives you kind of an idea of what this John Martin is all about and his vision and his plans for PFL. So that's an educational introduction interview for this guy. But shortly after that, kind of put out that statement clarifying these title fights they announced for the December card and saying this is the way, Farah. 1 belt, each division. I don't know what they're doing for the tournaments. I know they still have another year of that on ESPN if they're going to move away from like handing out a belt. I'm sure the checks will still be there, but do you like this element and what they're finally doing the simple way?
Yeah, because it's going to have a lasting impact on the writers as well, because I was so confused yesterday when I was trying to put up that article. I'm like, hang on a second. Who's fighting who for what? What are we calling this? Super fights, door fights? Who's the champion? Hang on a second. Where's Francis Ngannou? So yes, I think the way they should go is just have an actual title, and then maybe the tournament winners could just be the number 1 contender for that championship. Just make life easy. It's better for promo. Like, it's just so many belts. It's like, yeah, no, we're getting rid of this belt. This belt was a one-time thing. It's like, no, we don't know that. Like, you're deciding that on the way. Like, people need to be able to keep up. Like, there needs to be somewhere where they could go on PFLMMA.com or whatever and know who the champion of each division is, because I sometimes find myself having no idea what I'm looking at. And then there's PFL Europe, and then there's PFL Middle East, and then there's this and that. I just think they need to be like, this is definitely a step in the right direction. Just, it's better for the fighters as well. It's just better for marketing purposes and allowing people to see, because like there's always this thing of like, oh, PFL is second to the UFC and stuff, which fair enough, but it's like, if you want to legitimize it, have one champion like that takes on the best fighters. Don't have like 100 different sub champs and subcategories and tournaments and whatnot. It just gets a little too confusing.
Yeah. Going off that, so speaking of that, PFL, did Ngannou vacate the belt? He was never really like a champion. That was kind of a one-off super fight belt for that. So there wasn't really anything to vacate. There's nothing to defend in that sense. It's kind of just like, you won this fight and we crowned you is that. But what do you say, just real quick, does Francis Ngannou fight for PFL again? Yes or no?
No.
Yeah.
Although yeah, it seems like he was, well, from what I understood from like French interview was that, you know, he's got a fight left in his contract and figure things out in April and whatnot. But is that the next, you know what? It's going to depend on his negotiations in boxing, because at the end of the day, Francis is writing. I know he did not look good in the Anthony Joshua fight, but you fought Anthony Joshua. You fought Tyson Fury. Why would you not want to fight Deontay Wilder? Deontay Wilder is talking back to you. He's interested in making this happen. He's not going to fight some unknown, amazing boxer. You know what I mean? Like, if Francis Ngannou is going to lace up the gloves again, it's going to be against a very big name, because he can, and because those big names are actually interested in fighting him. So, but that means negotiations take time, right? With those massive names and massive paydays, it's not easy to get it done. So I think for him, if he's really itching to compete, if he can't get a deal going with a Deontay Wilder in the next couple of months, maybe he can throw in an MMA fight there and just do boxing.
And John Martin said in that statement that he shared about the belts that he intends to sit down and get to know Francis and figure something out. So we'll see what he can do, and if he kind of has a better relationship with Francis than maybe Don Davis or whomever was previously talking to him did. I'll take this one from Green Bandana. How does Mark Shapiro saying City having to pay top dollar to get UFC affects the long-term fan experience? For people who didn't see this, this is basically just Mark Shapiro on one of these calls saying that they're focusing heavily on getting site fees. And if you don't pay us a site fee, we're going to go to the next city that will, essentially, which if you've been paying attention, this has been going on for a while now. And, you know, this ties into what we kind of said off the top. I think there can be an upside to it, obviously financial for the UFC. If it's a big city, a big market, all that stuff, you can go there frequently. But you look at Perth and you see the back end of it, right? Like, if you oversaturate the market or don't bring something that's on par to what you've been bringing in previous years, or the ticket prices continue to elevate, that's where you're going to run into problems. Like, not everything is a lock, especially a place like Perth where there's only so many people living in that city, and it's a pretty damn isolated part of Australia. Like, you got to go pretty far to get there. So are people traveling from Sydney, from New Zealand, things like that to come to this card with the prices? All those are where you get into a little more trouble. But if they go to Chicago every summer for the next 6 years, I don't think they're going to run into this issue. So it's kind of just market dependent. So that's my thoughts on that. And I guess as we close it out here, Farah, last talking point, because he was tweeting up a storm this morning, and I know a lot of you are very sick of Conor McGregor, but here it was. How do I get that comment off the screen there? I'm trying to figure that out. There we go. Conor McGregor, $100 million to fight at the White House, along with 100 US gold visas for myself and family and friends. I very much look forward to entertaining the fighting world once again. A pleasure I never take for granted. He said in some other tweets, like, you know, he's never been so eager to punch something, all this stuff. But I think the first part of that is more interesting than the second. I don't really care about the 100 gold visas or whatever, but 100 million, when you see that, is it Conor just talking shit? Is it him actually sincerely proposing that, or is it him trying to price himself out of the fight? As Dana White has said many times, there's ways to, you know, not fight when you claim you want to fight, and one of those ways is to ask for an unrealistic amount of money, which for Conor McGregor, I will say 100 million should not be unrealistic in his world, what he's done, what he'd bring to this card, blah blah blah. But in the world where we live in, with the 30 years of evidence from the UFC, it is unrealistic.
Yeah, it could be him flexing his power. I mean, Dana always raves about how reliable Conor McGregor is. I know he withdrew from UFC 303 due to a broken pinky toe, which he has criticized other people in the past for withdrawing for less. But he always seems to rave about his relationship with Conor and how reliable he is and how he sees him fighting at the White House over John Jones, yada, yada, yada. So could be him just flexing his power. I don't know if this is necessarily him pricing himself out. I could see him fighting at the White. Look, he was booked and scheduled and promoted to fight at UFC 303, so we got there kind of in some regard with Conor McGregor, at least a better step than with John Jones, right? We didn't get an event name with Tom Aspinall and stuff like that. Like we got just a lot of talk. So I don't know. I'm not ready to believe yet. I'm going to have to see more, and I'm sure Conor loves to tweet. So I'm sure we'll hear more. But for now, I'd like to think this is just him flexing his power. He's fully aware of how much the UFC needs him, especially jumping into the Paramount era, especially getting rid of pay-per-view and him owning like 8 out of the 10 top 10 pay-per-views of all time in the UFC, and the constant discussion about does the UFC have stars anymore, him seeing the soured relationship between Dana and John Jones. Like, I think he's just flexing his power here.
Yeah, it's a smart move too, and you put it in the grand scheme. They're getting 1.1 billion a year for this deal. That's like 8% if my math is correct. So, and what would he be bringing to subscriptions, all that type of stuff? So, yeah, I mean, he deserves it. I'm sure Dana White will get asked about this next week if he resurfaces in the media for the first time since before Crawford versus Canelo. So, yeah, very curious to hear what Dana White has to say. And I think he said in one of those interviews too that they did it was supposed to be last week. They were having a meeting of like 60 of his people and 60 Paramount people, and we're going to start mapping out the next 7 years, all that stuff. So I'm going to ask him kind of what they talked about and if anything new came. Last thing on Conor, do you feel like it's going to be Michael Chandler if he does fight and it's on that card, or do you see a path to anything else? I feel like Michael Chandler will be the easiest to work with B-side as opposed to like a Nate Diaz.
100%. Especially like trying to get Conor to compete, it was already hard enough. Like if you can finally get that part, there is nobody that is gonna run and do it on probably a day's notice at that point, because he has not stopped talking about Conor McGregor. And I love Michael Chandler, but he has not stopped talking, hasn't stopped believing, having faith that this fight is gonna happen. So yeah, why wouldn't you go down that route? He just and he's perfect for the White House card as well. So why would you even bother trying to get into another headache with Nate Diaz?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, last thing here. Mike, when are you heading to Dagestan? Farah, will you go to Dubai to cover Khabib's camp? Usman, Umar, Islam. I'll answer first. Still don't know. It's very hard to work out with these guys and the timing. Like I would have maybe tried to push to come to the Abu Dhabi card if Islam's fight was further away, but I assume by the time you get there, Usman's fight will have happened already. I don't know what they're doing as far as like Umar and Islam. I know last time when Islam fought in New Jersey, the whole team came like a month early, and I don't know if they're planning to do that again for New York. Obviously, Umar's fight is a few weeks before. I'm sure Khabib will stay there. Maybe they might splinter things. So I have no idea. Point is, it's hard to lock down when all these guys have fights close together, but it's still high on the wish list, and hopefully make it happen with Abi Subhan in 2026 if things line up. But I don't know. Have you been to that gym that they work out of in Dubai yet?
I haven't, but I think you're probably better off or easier for you to go to Dubai and just find them there. Probably a lot easier than Dagestan, I would say. There are times I think they're all there now.
Yep.
So yeah, so that would have probably been easier for you than trying
but
to
we need to see the actual day. Like,
yes,
I need to get
yeah,
there. I need to do this like 3-hour drive from actual like wherever you land in Dagestan to Habib's new gym. Like, you got to experience at least once. So trust me, we are trying. We are working on it. It's just it's not the easiest thing to just snap at the fingers. It's not like, hey, we're going to Miami to go to ATT. It's a little trickier for that, but we'll hope to make it happen. All right, Farah, I know you got to head out of here. I really appreciate the time. This was fun. Thank you to all of you guys for tuning in. Honestly, better viewer number than I expected, Farah, considering the subscribers and everything. So I appreciate everyone tuning in and supporting. And yeah, we'll definitely try to make this a more regular thing because it was a lot of fun. Farah, any parting words?
Oh, people are asking about Cedric Doumbé, which I heard some personal things regarding him, which I probably shouldn't share. But I think he's just—I'll put it simply—like he's kind of he was taking personal time off to do nothing like crazy, just him taking personal time off for himself. He is doing a meet and greet in France. He's not on that card. So I don't think it's anything to do with bad negotiations with the PFL or anything like that. I think he should probably jump into a fight camp soon. But I know I know where he was recently, and he was just taking some personal time off. So I think he should probably be in a training camp soon. And he's kind of a super fight guy, right? So you just need to find him an opponent and put him on a France card. Fans will go crazy, and it'll be pretty simple for the PFL to do.
There we go. One more for the road, answered by Farah. All right, Lazy Bed. And I saw your comment about wanting to be a moderator. If this continues to grow and we get a chaotic chat, we'll definitely keep you in mind, man. I appreciate you tweeting out the link and being a big supporter. Goes for all of you. Thank you so much. Yeah, as Green Bandana, give it a like, give it a comment, all that stuff. We'll be back in the future. Talk to you all soon. Love you. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Farah. Talk soon.